right, so the next one is protein. All right, so we know that in an ideal situation, neither athlete is going to be using protein or our amino acids to produce ATP, okay? So if we get that out of the way, then we can just talk about, well, what protein do they need? Okay, so an aerobic athlete, so this is now flipped, right? They need a normal amount of protein to support their recovery. Common normal amount is anywhere between 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight daily, okay? So if you were just a normal aerobic athlete, you know, you're like a power walker or you just like to recreationally run for an hour, you know, then just you can sit on the lower end of that. But if you're like a marathon runner or an ultra marathon runner, then you want to sit on the higher end of that, just because, like, even though you're only running, you're not lifting weights or anything, it does cause muscular damage, and you do need to repair that muscular damage to recover so that then you can go running again. Otherwise you end up with issues like tendonitis and stuff in your body. But when we look at our anaerobic athlete, okay, they need higher amounts this time. So higher amounts to support their recovery and to support muscular hypertrophy, okay? So hypertrophy is the term that we use for muscles getting larger and stronger, okay? It will come up again in the course. So they need somewhere between 1.6 to 2.0 grams per kilogram per day of body weight, all right? So they need to support recovery like these guys, but they need to have the extra building blocks there to get bigger and stronger, all right? So think of it like protein is like bricks in a house, right? If you've got 100 bricks, you can build a house this big. If you've got 150 bricks, you can build a house bigger, all right? That's protein. Okay, fats, right? So fats, we know fats in the body support the body's functions, okay, and hormonal production, etc. Remember from our video on digestive and endocrine systems. Aerobic athletes, depending on what type of aerobic activity they're doing, is going to depend on how much fat they have, okay? If they are doing a large portion of their aerobic activity below that 60 to 65% maximum heart rate, which means that they're able to use aerobic lipolysis instead of aerobic glycolysis, then they should have higher amounts. But remember, because fat is so dense in energy, higher amounts doesn't necessarily mean lots of it, it just means a bit more. So for example, an aerobic athlete may consume anywhere between 15 to 25% of their total daily energy expenditure, which is TDEE, okay, in fats, which is about 50 grams, okay, of fat. It's not much. Our anaerobic athlete, just normal amounts, okay, just to support their body functions and hormones, okay, so 15 to 20%. So you can see there's only like a 5% increase here between the two of them. Okay, that is fats. Let's get on to water. Okay, water is actually really simple. It's really, really important. A lot of people, when they're writing about macronutrient needs of athletes, they just go protein, fats, carbs. They forget about water. Water is so important. All right. Water, aerobic and anaerobic athletes, okay? The guidelines for water intake are the same. They're the same for both of them, okay? I have read here higher due to sustained activity and greater consumption of carbohydrates, but that's going to come out in the guidelines anyway because they're exercising longer. So here are your guidelines for water. Everybody should consume 2 liters per day, okay? That's standard advice for every individual, every adult individual. Plus, this is the athlete guidelines and they apply to both. 500 mils in the hour before training. So that's not like 500 mils and then go for a run. That's like, I'm going to start training in 1 hour's time. I'm going to make myself 500 mils of water, and over that hour, I will consume it, okay? Then, once we start training, for every 15 minutes of activity you do, you should consume 150 mils of water. See the numbers, 150, 15? We try and make this easy for you to remember, okay? Because, to be honest, athletes aren't the smartest people either. So let's make it simple. And then, when you finish exercising, you should also consume 1.5 liters per kilogram of body weight lost post-exercise. And what that means is that if I am a 70 kilo individual, okay, and then I do my 500 mils in the hour before training, and I go for a 2-hour run, and on my 2-hour run, I still consume 150 mils per 15 minutes during exercise, and then at the end of my run, I take off all my clothes, and I stand on the scales, and I weigh 69 kilos, okay? That means that even despite all of my best efforts, I've lost a kilo of body weight in that hour, and it's fluid, okay? So then I need to consume 1.5 liters, okay? Not like scull it down, but over the next hour or two, consume that to get your fluid levels back up. So that applies to our anaerobic athletes too, okay? If they're weightlifters or whatever, but we know that they don't do sustained activity and they're not going to lose a lot of body weight from sweat loss. So they don't actually end up consuming as much fluid as the aerobic athlete. There's one more guideline that I'm actually going to write down the bottom, which applies to both, which you may have heard before, which is a very good sign that you are adequately hydrated. Athletes should have pale straw-colored urine, okay, pre-performance. So that means if they go to the toilet, do number ones before exercise, their urine should be a pale straw color. So it shouldn't be like super clear. Super clear probably means that you need to have some electrolytes, but it shouldn't be any more than just that sort of like off clear color. I know this is gross to think about, but this is a really, really good telltale sign that you are adequately hydrated. So you should have a pale straw urine pre-performance. If not, they probably need to have more water. And then especially a post-performance, once again, they should have pale straw urine. And if it's going back to like a really dark yellow color, then they probably need to weigh themselves, find out how much extra water they need to take. So that's water. We're not going to do fiber, but we will touch on micronutrients. Okay, so the last screen here, we've got micronutrients being vitamins and minerals. Okay, so I've done them both together and I've sort of separated them. So you'll notice how aerobic athlete, once again, probably needs more of these things than an anaerobic athlete, mainly because their exercise is sustained. It's longer. They're doing more volume and therefore they need more things to replenish. So due to the ongoing nature of aerobic activity, there is more free radical damage caused from byproducts in the ATP production process. So therefore they require greater consumption of vitamins such as vitamin B, vitamin C as antioxidants to support their recovery. Okay, so more damage, more vitamins required to support healthy recovery. So therefore they can exercise again. Anaerobic athletes just have normal amounts. Not saying don't have any of them, just normal amounts that you would usually get from your fruits and vegetables and things like that. Minerals, we've got our aerobic athlete, this is probably the most important one, increases of iron, okay, due to iron being very important in red blood cell production. And we know from the previous video that red blood cells carry oxygen in the body. And if your energy system is reliant on oxygen, then you need as much oxygen as possible. So therefore, we can't have low red blood cells as an endurance athlete. Low red blood cell count is called anemia. And despite knowing this fact, it's actually very, very common in endurance athletes, especially female endurance athletes, because they've got two things to compete with there, not only their endurance activity, but also menstruation. So iron consumption must be a priority, and a lot of endurance athletes, especially females, will end up using an iron supplement to help with this if they don't like eating red meat. They should, both athletes, this is the same for both of them with calcium, so greater levels of calcium compared to like a non-exercise person, okay, to support and repair the hard tissues of the body. All right, so even though your muscles are doing the work, they are pulling on the levers, okay, and those levers do get a bit of wear and tear. So we need to support and repair them with calcium. Also with an aerobic athlete, if you are prolonging exercise for a long period of time, the body can actually start to rob the bones from calcium and use that as part of its energy production. So we don't want that to happen either. And both these athletes, same again, probably need to have more so with the aerobic athlete because of the sustained activity and sweating and stuff, but greater needs for electrolytes such as sodium, okay? So having that right balance of electrolytes in your bloodstream floating around will make hydration a lot easier, and therefore you won't feel the effects of dehydration as quickly. That's the end of this video. Thanks.